Hi, it's Bree van Reyk here. I'm coming to you today from my backyard in Newcastle. You may hear some mostly non-native birds, a few spotted turtledoves around, and occasionally a butcher bird, which is really nice. More likely some coal trains will go past though. I was really looking forward to coming to Canberra this year for the CIMF and to share my new piece with you, which is called Replica Garden. This was to be premiered at the National Botanic Gardens to coincide with their 50th anniversary. But obviously, due to the current situation with the coronavirus, it's not able to happen at this present time. But we still wanted to share with you a taste of the piece and to share some of the process and the work in progress. So the idea for Replica Garden came to me when really thinking about how wonderful the botanic gardens are. I've always loved them since I was a child. And I was really honoured to be asked to write a piece for a garden, and it was something I never thought I would get commissioned for before. And I immediately started to think about the birds and the other animals that come into the gardens, and how I love to just listen to bird song in nature. And I started to also really be aware of how rare that is now, and is becoming even more and more rare and scarce. And places like the gardens are so special, and we're so lucky to have them. And I really think it's possible that in a few years' time, or a couple of generations' time at least, even the gardens might be gone, and certainly a lot of the other natural habitats will be gone. We have such beautiful natural environments here in Australia and such amazing animals and birds. And it's really devastating to think of the current situation with climate change and just a lack of regard for our environment and other animals. So I came up with this idea where a replica garden had been constructed to try to recreate the sounds that you would find in a bush garden. And because of the new Banksia Garden, we sort of worked with the idea. I've been working with some designers, and we worked with the idea of using this kind of pod-like shapes. The Banksia flowers, there's so many different kinds of them, and they're all really beautiful. And I immediately, when I had a tour around the gardens to look at them, I started thinking, oh, that looks like, I actually have a tiny little wood block, which looks like a little Banksia pod. And, you know, other ones of them, they have quite a sort of conical bell-like shape. So we made these ones out of plywood. Which I think sound really beautiful. They're really simple, but I think this one is really, really lovely and low. Oscar, who I'm working with, also made some really beautiful bells, which have a really cone-like Banksia quality to them. And we'll be constructing them onto some little kind of trees like this. So these things sort of look like the flowers, but they don't sound like flowers. They sound like percussion instruments. One of the other ideas that we had was to use instruments that sort of look like trees or rocks, but maybe they sound like insects. So this kind of information about the insects and the birds and the rocks has been jumbled somehow. So you get something like this that sort of looks a bit rocky. It sort of sounds a bit more insecty. Of course, xylophones and things are all made out of planks of wood. This is awesome. These are all bits of Australian hardwood, which I've found just in scrapyards. And then I started making also some sort of whistle-shaped things. Like this works as a little xylophone bar on its own. And all of these. I signed up for a woodworking course, and I've been drilling some of them out. And my idea is to make some whistles. So on this one, I've attached a whistle mouthpiece, but it doesn't have any holes yet, and it may not. So in its current form, it's what you would call an overtone flute, although it has a whistle mouthpiece. So I'm not really sure what it's called. I just kind of made it up on the go. It's just got the single hole at the end, but it has an amazing amount of sounds in it still. I didn't want to do something that actually replicated the sound of Australian birds because they're so beautiful and amazing, and I didn't want to really try to do that because that has been done. A lot of people have done really beautiful jobs of that in the past. The concept for Replica Garden is really that it's not correct, like it's not a correct interpretation of a garden, or that if we don't preserve the information and the actual animals and the actual gardens enough, then we won't have any access to it. And so what this will end up being is encased in a kind of portable micro-theatre, and myself and the other members of Ensemble Offspring will bring this out, and it kind of unfolds, and you see these performers undertaking this kind of ritual where we build this replica garden, things that look like trees and rocks, and they sound sort of like insects and sort of like birds, but it's a really a mismatch of information.